Welcome to our live webcast, an early intervention program to promote student well-being. Thank you for joining us. My name is Claudia, and I'll be the operator for the presentation today. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acquaint you with a few features of this web event technology. At any time, you may adjust your audio using any computer volume settings that you have. We'd love to hear from you during the presentation. To share your questions, on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see the text chat window. There is a large window which holds all of your sent messages and a smaller text box at the bottom where you'll type in your questions. To send a question, click in the text box and type your text. When finished, click the Send button. All questions that you submit are only seen by today's presenters. Your questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. At the conclusion of today's program, we ask that you complete a brief post-event survey. Please take a moment to complete this survey in order to receive your continuing education credits for this webinar. The presentation will be available on adea.org next week. If you have any questions about receiving the presentation, CE credits, or general questions about ADEA, please use the Q&A box and ADEA staff will try to answer your questions as they receive them. I will now turn the microphone over to Ben Isagari, who is the Director of Faculty Development and E-Learning at ADEA.
Thank you, Claudia. On behalf of ADEA, I want to thank our audience for joining us today in this webinar on student well-being. We're really excited to have Maya Arden and Christina Morrow from New York University College of Dentistry joining us today to lead the discussion and share their experiences. And as Claudia mentioned, we encourage the audience to ask questions throughout the presentation by utilizing the chat box to the right, and we'll have time dedicated to Q&A at the end of the presentation. So with that, it's now my pleasure to introduce Christina and Maya.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Morrow, and I'm the Director of Advising and Academic Support Services at NYU College of Dentistry. I have a Master's in Higher Education from Columbia Teachers College, and I also am a doctoral candidate in Sociology of Education at NYU. I've been advising grad students for over 10 years, and in my current role, I oversee academic advising and academic support services for about 1,600 dental students.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maya Ardone, and I'm the Director of Student Affairs at the NYU College of Dentistry. I hold my Master's in Higher Education and Student Affairs from New York University Steinhardt School of Education. I've been working in higher ed for over 12 years, and in my current role, I work specifically with our student engagement as well as our ethics board, known as the peer review board, as well as our student clubs and our leadership experiences. In my capacity, I also serve as an academic advisor, working very closely with Christina within the Student Success Network, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on.
Great. So before we begin, just a brief note on disclosures. Both Maya and myself, including members of our immediate family, do not have any financial relationships with commercial entities that may be relevant to this presentation. Great. So today, we're going to share our experiences implementing our well-being program, the Student Success Network at the College of Dentistry at NYU. Our goals are to help you evaluate the resources that you have available at your institution to support student well-being and consider the stakeholder partnerships needed to support those efforts. Before we begin, we'd also like to get some feedback from the audience to help us tailor the discussion. So as you can see on the screen, Maya and I would like to know what your reasons for joining this webinar are. You can utilize the chat box to the right on the window to input your responses. So I see a few people are typing. That's awesome. Multiple attendees. So new ideas. Learning more about this topic. We are expected to mentor patients but have no training in counseling students. Okay, we'll talk about students. Interested in learning more about how to promote student health and wellness. Mental health with students on the rise, definitely. How to implement a wellness program at the dental schools. How to intervene with student issues. Stress interventions for students. Okay, so thank you everyone for sharing those ideas. We'll move on to our first slide, which is what causes student stress. So we're going to ask the audience again to input into the chat box, what are some factors you think cause student stress? So the course load, yeah. Course load in dental school is huge, especially following undergrad. They're doing didactic courses and have hand skills and labs for the first time. I see too much information in too little time. Multiple obligations like school and family, difficulty developing coping skills, financial stress and tuition are huge. I see 3 people said that. Students need to develop time management skills. Having a perfectionist trait, yeah, I see that in a lot of dental students, a lot of professional and graduate students, because in order to get to this point, they've had to be top students, constantly performing well to get into this position. And homesickness is a big one. So thank you, audience, for those comments. We will now continue with our presentation. So as many of you mentioned, intense pressure is a huge cause of student stress. In these difficult curriculums, they have disrupted sleeping patterns, disrupted eating. They often don't have time to exercise, which has been shown to relieve stress. There's a high pressure to succeed in dental school. The learning environment and the teaching environment is different than many of them had before. And as I said, this is the first time that many are spending so much time in lab. A number of students balance personal responsibilities and obligations with dental school. So caring for family members, some students are working, some students have health issues. Students are more likely now to have a history of depression and other mental health issues, and the early and mid-20s are when psychiatric illnesses are most likely to hit, so this may be the first time that we're seeing this in our students. And different levels of access to their personal support system. So as someone else suggested, they may be homesick. If they're far from home, they may not have the family support that they normally do. Great, and so some common challenges to student success, which come from the IDEA Council of Students, Residents, and Fellows, include emotional stress, financial stress, academic difficulty, homesick or lack of connection, and feeling isolated or different within the new dental school culture. And now I am going to turn it over to my colleague, Maya.
Thank you, Christina. So before we share some of the resources that we have available at the NYU College of Dentistry, we wanted to get a sense from everyone about what resources are available on your campuses. So if you can just use the audience chat box and give us some information. So we're seeing counseling services, absolutely. Mental health and wellness, mental health services, academic resources, a testing center, academic support, a student resource center. Just give it a couple more seconds. We do recreation, tutoring, academic focus, absolutely. Great, thank you. So just to kind of give a general consensus for some of the things that you've shared and things that we know that we have available, our students here at the College of Dentistry have access to the greater New York University resources, which you may or may not have available on your individual campuses. Some of the things that we know, of course, the Student Health Center, in many cases, it's separate from a counseling center. In our case, they're partnered together. A Student Activities Office that will have opportunities for student engagement and leadership programs. Center for Students with Disabilities, whether that's an actual physical disability or students who may have test anxiety and need support for extra time. A Career Development Center, and depending on where you're at, it may just be for us specifically our Career Development Center is focused specifically and targets undergraduate students. You may have a Career Development Center within your dental college that focuses on helping students either with postgraduate opportunities or even getting into a postgraduate residency program or into a job. An international student office here at NYU, we have an office that helps students with their visa paperwork and navigating processes as they arrive on campus. A financial aid office that might help students with scholarship opportunities and their FAFSA or other related paperwork. And then offices that assist students and support them as far as like cultural differences, whether it's Center for Multicultural Education and Programs or an LGBTQ student center that helps students navigate different aspects of their identity. So transitioning from here, thinking about what other things that we may have, and so many of the resources you all shared were very specific to faculty and academic experiences that students were having at our dental school. And what we see when we attend ADIA is peer mentor programs and peer tutors, because we do find that students receive information so much better when they hear it directly from someone who's going through the experience alongside them. Academic success programs that help encourage students to learn study skills and time management skills. Leadership programs, which we have a very comprehensive leadership track that exposes students to different leadership theory and how they might be able to incorporate that into their career someday. Peer and self-assessment course, that's something that we have here at the college where students can work to get evaluations from their peers so that they get a full view of how others perceive them and, feedback on their interactions with both faculty and other students who will be their colleagues. Faculty mentors, which other folks had mentioned, and then academic advisors such as ourselves who meet regularly with our students just to get to know them.
And I'm just going to jump in really quickly. This is Christina again. I realized I skipped a slide, but it also fits in really well right here. There's a large body of research on student success. Higher and post-secondary education research from the 70s through current times indicate that it's the quality of interactions that students have with faculties and administrators at their college that is one reason why they persist in graduating and getting their degrees. So personal outreach, like what we're about to talk about with our Student Success Network, has helped students to adjust their academic behaviors. And the quality of interaction and engagement with the institution through, for example, involvement in leadership opportunities, as well as just interaction with advisors and people who provide support at the university are very predictive of students getting their degrees. So with that, we will talk about the NYU College of Dentistry Student Success Network that we designed using our existing resources.
So this is Maya again, as Christina mentioned, our team is very much focused on holistic development of our students and really getting a 360-degree view of the experience that our students are having. As academic advisors, when we meet with our students for the first time, it's really just about getting to know them, and we try to do that within the first 6 weeks of the beginning of the D1 year. Students will come in, we ask them where they're living, who they're living with, what their commute may be like, how they performed academically in their undergraduate career, what things might interest them. Having that first conversation with our students really enables them to feel more comfortable with us so that whether they're looking to celebrate a moment of achievement or they're going through crisis, the academic advisors are all very accessible to them and make themselves available, and we have started early on to create that relationship and foster that with them. This relationship also can continue on as students continue on through their academic experience at the college. We do academic outreach. Christina, in her role, along with another colleague, very closely monitor grades so that if a student may not be performing as well as they would like, we can send an email to them and invite them to come in and have a conversation about their performance. And it's not as threatening because we've had, a friendly conversation so early on. As Christina mentioned, what we did was we took what our existing programs and resources were at the college and rebranded them as a Student Success Network because it really does require a multitude of touch points for each individual student to get them from orientation to graduation. And I'll transition it to Christina to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so when talking about student success, as Maya said, we are looking at holistic development of the student, We're trying to get a 360 sense of who they are. So involving peer mentors and peer tutors who are students at the college, along with faculty and other staff and administrators, through faculty mentoring, through the group practice directors in the clinic, through different coursework. If something's going on with a student, a faculty member can let us in Student Affairs and Advising know, and we're able to reach out to peer mentors and peer tutors to find out if they've seen anything from their end. You know, obviously protecting FERPA and keeping things as private as possible, but trying to get a picture of, is what the faculty seeing? Are the students' peers seeing the same thing? What other information can we gather to best support the student? And how can we help them? And what other resources at the college can we use to intervene and help them? So we're going to go through a student scenario now of how we would use our Student Success Network. So in this example, a faculty member notices that Charlie is regularly late to class, isn't completing work on time, and hasn't been returning emails. The faculty at this point would let us know so that we could intervene. Now, we used our Office of Information Technology at the College of Dentistry, which already had a pre-existing, intranet portal with student information, and we added a student success reporting form to it, and this is an example of the form. Faculty or staff can go in here, label how urgent their concern is about a student. They type in the name of the student, which automatically populates. Our student in this example is Charlie Brown. It tells us he's class of 2017, his email, who his group practice director is, who his academic advisor is, his faculty and peer mentor. So through that, we can gather more information. And then the faculty member can also leave us a note, a detail of their concern about, and their phone number so that we can immediately call them. And when we get when these forms are filled out, Maya and I get a text message to our phone immediately so that we can respond right away.
And I would just add, those situations, faculty can also note whether it's just a mild alert or an urgent alert. And the text messages come in for an urgent alert when they may see a student crying outside their classroom and identify that something had just happened with them personally. It enables us to just call that faculty member and say, you know, can you put us on the phone with that student, and really speed up the process of getting that student connected to wellness resources. Christina also does extensive trainings with our faculty throughout the academic year to inform them of that form and how to use it, and what the different levels of urgency are, so that we're not getting an urgent text message for something that, you know, if it's on a Saturday, we can meet with that student Monday morning to kind of help them get involved, you know, engagement opportunities on campus versus something actually happened to them over the weekend with their family. So it helps us gauge that and work with the faculty to do that.
And I think it's also important to note, too, on the form, we also say if it's an emergency, call 911. If it's an urgent counseling situation, we also, and I'm sure many of you do too, we have 24/7 counselors available through the university that can speak to students at all hour of the day or night.
So on this is Maya again, on the advisor side of the portal, you've seen the faculty administrator side of the portal that's external to our team. On the academic advisor side of the portal, we wanted just to share with you what that page looks like. And each individual student, as Christina mentioned, has a page within our portal, and we can input notes on every meeting that we've had with them.
And initial meetings are mandatory for D1 students each semester. And at our school, obviously, we're a large school. We have 380 students in our first year class. We have 6 academic advisors here who are also doing financial aid, doing student life, student activities, etc.
So within this portal, those 6 advisors that Christina had mentioned all have access to this system. And in our initial meeting, we just put in general notes. You know, Charlie came in, he's from Chicago, he's having a hard time adjusting to New York. His brother was supposed to come with him to dental school and didn't get in. He's navigating this on his own. And that just lets us know that the next time Charlie comes in, we can revisit what we've written about them and say, hey, how are you doing being here without your brother? It really helps that student in terms of feeling connected, especially with such a large class size. It allows us to have a refresher on what our conversation was. And especially if a student comes in and they're in crisis, if I, as their advisor, am not here, but they're coming to talk to Christina, Christina can very quickly look and see what my past conversations have been with that student to say, Maya's not here, but let me, catch up with you and see what's going on. And that helps the student be more comfortable because they're not starting over. And the form that Christina had previously shown regarding urgent or faculty notifications also gets embedded in this portal so that we do have a full history on the students so that we can make sure we're supporting them at best. This also isn't just advisor notes from advisor meetings or those faculty notes. It can be any time the student has come in. We can also register that. And this also allows us to get data at the end of the academic year to see how many of our conversations were about students just wanting to seek leadership opportunities. How many times were we hearing wellness concerns? How many were just academic conversations about failures or just, check-ins? And we can input that information in here. So as far as takeaways, the things that just, for consideration is that everybody who has, hands-on experience with students really has a responsibility to contribute to their success, whether it's somebody who's working with them in clinic who recognizes a concern to someone like us in an academic advisor where that is our role. We wouldn't be able to do the work we do with students without that information that we get from within the network of the university at large. Our thought, what we have available at NYU certainly isn't the same thing that's available nationwide or even internationally. And so we, challenge everyone to think about what are the current structures that you have on your campus? How might they work together? And then, thinking at that third point, how do you rebrand what those things are to create a model and encourage everyone that it really does take a campus-wide effort to get each student from the time that they step onto your campus until the point that they graduate. So that's it for me. Christina, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add?
We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in today and listening to us. And we're going to turn it over to Ben now.
All right. So thank you, Maya and Christina, for that wonderful discussion. We received some questions during the presentation that I want to get to now. And just as a reminder to the audience, if you'd like to ask any questions of Christina or Maya, you can input those into the Q&A box at the right of your screen. So we've had some questions come in related to the reception of this Student Success Network that I'd like to get to a little bit from the various stakeholder points of view. So first off, can you tell us a little bit about how students have responded to this program?
Yeah, I think, it's because of we're looking at each entering class is around 380 students. So there isn't one singular experience with it. I think especially given how busy our students are, and I'm coming from having worked for a number of years at the undergraduate level. I think undergraduate students tend to be very eager to connect with advisors. I think at the graduate level, they're struggling to understand what it means to all of a sudden have an advisor because the curriculum is set. I think for those students who really need support and guidance in getting through dental school, they definitely are utilizing the system, at great rates. The students who maybe don't understand it as well, I think they make a point, and this is why it's beneficial for us that at least the D1 fall and spring meetings are mandatory. It allows them to at least get in the door so that if they choose to never connect with us again throughout their next 4 years, at least someone at the institution has had a meeting with them from the time that they arrived to at least get to know a little bit about them.
And I would add, prior to this program, most of the time that I met with a student, it was because they were struggling academically. So it was predominantly very negative interactions, not on purpose, but it's not fun to come and talk to someone about that you're not doing well in a class. So getting to meet with them early and getting to meet with everyone in their class so that they all know our names and our faces helped a lot in terms of destigmatizing coming to meet with us and coming to talk about these concerns.
So to add to that a little bit and take it from a different point of view, how have the faculty and administration responded to the program?
I think they've really embraced it. we've gotten a lot of concerns that I think normally they would have thought, well, this isn't important enough to share with you. I think it's encouraged them a lot to keep in the loop with us, and also to really take on some of the responsibility of taking care of our students. We're all a team here. We all have a role in making sure that they graduate. I think the most resistance has been the information technology piece of it. Some of them don't really like going online to use a form, but that's okay. They're still able to call us and able to email us, and we just enter the information ourselves. I think the important thing is that they're reaching out and reporting their concerns. So it's not so much the form as getting the report.
I think one of the most validating things for me personally, this is Maya again, I think in working with our faculty members, is I want to say, and I'm looking at Christina, 9 times out of 10, I think when a faculty member reaches out to us, we already know that student and we've been working with them, and it just gives us a little bit more information and allows us to, without sharing too much and maintaining that student's privacy, we're allowed to give them somewhat of an indication of how might be best to help support that student because we have already been speaking or working with them. And at least it gives us a sense of, if it's a wellness or familial issue that we know that they're handling, it allows us to see what kind of impact it's having on their academic experience. So it helps us to better tailor the conversations that we're having with our student. For example, okay, we may know that, a D2 student is having an issue at home with a particular parent being sick, but we don't realize that it's keeping them from getting to class on time. And, being able to work with that faculty to say, hey, we're working with, Jane. We know Jane. Next time you see her, do me a favor, ask her why she's late. I promise you'll get better information as to, not just that she doesn't care and she's being dismissive. Ask her, why were you late this time? I feel like something may be going on, and see what kind of response you get from the student. I think it's improved their relationships with our students.
Okay, I'd like to move on to another question now. Do you have any advice for advisors working in environments that lack diversity and the impact that it has on student success?
Yeah, I think one of our strongest assets, and again, just speaking from NYU, I think one of our strengths is we really strive to serve as a resource for our students, and our job is to stay up to date with what's going on at the university at large to help our students get connected. So as an advisor, I make sure that I know what's going on and what resources are available to students, whether it's a student who has an accessibility concern, and even to know other students who may share that, who may feel comfortable with sharing their experience and helping them connect to their peers, or, whether it's ability or it's something that's related to race and ethnicity and conversations students feel are absent from their experience. I find it my responsibility to connect them to faculty, to events that may be going on, to programs that are available to them, just so that they feel connected in some way. And then for me, it's a lot about just creating space for that student. So they may never have the opportunity to feel connected to a peer or a faculty member at their institution, but at least if I can provide them a forum to talk about the fact that there's an absence of that, it alleviates, I think, some of the stress that they may be experiencing in the classroom each day, because at least they know here's this space that's safe for me to have this conversation.
Great. And
I think, too, and I'm sorry, Ben, I think it's a lot of it is being real and realistic with your student. It's so important to feel comfortable having those difficult conversations and be real with them and say, like, hey, you may not be seeing other people in your class that look like you. I recognize that that's a challenge. Let's talk about it. What are you feeling? I may not be able to fix this today, but you making me aware of it makes me become more passionate about helping resolve that for students like yourself who may be here in the future, and letting them know that they can be invested in that experience too if they're interested, not to place that as a burden on them, but, ask them, are you interested in helping us with that? We'd love to have you be a part of this initiative to help students like yourself.
Thank you. And I'd like to squeeze in a couple more questions before we end. This one should be fairly quick if you know it. Do you know the software that you're using for your online reporting and record system?
It's something that was built directly through NYU's College of Dentistry IT department, but I think it could easily be replicated with a software like Qualtrics or any kind of survey software that you know is safe within your own campus and has like protection so that hackers can't get in, basically.
Yeah, the other thing I want to add too is, and I don't know if you were able to see it when we showed that screenshot, but Christina is the Director of Advising, and our Dean of Students are the highest priority in terms of visibility of what can be seen. So not every advisor on our team can see every single note. If there are things that are of a more private nature for the student, the advisor can put that note in and then also select the option to only make it viewable to our Dean of Students and to Christina, who would be at the most need-to-know level.
Okay, and our last question, this will probably apply to a lot of the audience. How would you create a similar network at a smaller school? What advice would you give?
I think it's really about, and I used to work at NYU Student Resource Center, and our job was just to be the 411 for our entire college campus. So our job was to know every single thing that was available. I think whether it's starting small with, some kind of publication or even a postcard that students get at orientation where you list out everything that is available on your campus, and then just start meeting with, your counterparts to say, what are you doing for our students and how can we market what you're doing? And then think about how you can partner those things together. The slide that we showed earlier when we talk about, what resources do you have on your campus, and we listed out career development and, the Center for Students with Disabilities. When our students arrive at orientation, we show them that slide, and it actually has the name of what the offices are at NYU, and we talk to them about how we work to liaise with those offices and help them connect, because it can seem so intimidating. And so I think just think critically about what are the different offices that students go to, and start meeting with those constituents and think, how can we brand this and package this as a group? It improves relationships within, the units working together. It encourages us to get out of our silos, I think, whether we're at a big school or a small school. And I would just start working from there.
And I would add, we say that we have 6 advisors, but we really only added 1 position to the Student Affairs team with the start of this program. All of the other things that you see as part of our Student Success Network, they were all pre-existing. So the other 5 advisors, they all already had roles here in student activities, in financial aid. The faculty had to take on additional roles in joining the peer and self-assessment team, in addition to working in clinic and the other things that they're teaching. So we really had to get people on board with understanding that student success is important, and it would benefit all of us to get involved and really to put everything under one umbrella and have it connected and brand it as being connected so that people realize that we're all part of the same network.
Yeah, it's definitely a commitment on the part of the office. So for my team, for example, I have a program administrator who is advising 40 student clubs and organizations and also handling a lot of our special events. And then I have another program administrator who runs our annual leadership track and retreats, and also works on some of our traditions like our white coat ceremony and our graduation. And they're both academic advisors. So the commitment that we make at most is, particularly at the start of each semester, to say these first 2 weeks, we're going to juggle scheduling all of these 20-minute check-ins with our students, knowing that that's the main focus at this point in time, and then everything else we build in what our regular day-to-day responsibilities are, we build them around these advising appointments. But beyond those first 2 weeks in the semester, those check-ins are a little bit more intermittent, I would say, unless we're in times of crisis, and then we usually will involve at my level or Christina's level.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for questions today. I want to thank you, Christina and Maya, again for joining us and sharing your expertise on this important topic. And on behalf of the American Dental Education Association, I also want to thank our audience for their participation in today's event. There's going to be a post-event survey appearing after this webinar requesting your feedback at the end on this presentation, and really giving ADIA a chance to plan better for the future and solicit topics that are important to you. So please fill that out, and it's also your mechanism for claiming CE credit. I also want to mention that there will be a recording of this presentation available at adia.org/past events within one week of this presentation. And we also have a new bi-monthly webinar series that will be starting in April that we're really excited to present and to devote to your professional development. So please look out for that. We'll have information on our website for registration and specific topic details coming in March. So that's all for today. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great day.